Alright there, my name's Jamie Smith and today I want to talk to you a little bit about rigs. Now, as many of you will have worked out from some of my writings, I like to keep things simple, and there's a lot of rubbish talked about rigs, and I think simplicity is the key really. For most of my fishing I use the simple no-knot rig. I use a variation on that theme, which is the wafter rig, or KD rig as it's often called. I use my ever faithful bottom bait rig, which I love. I use a chod rig and I use a hinge stiff link, and that's just about it really. I'm a bit set in my ways, but it all works. I think a lot of people are caught up in rig psychology. Quite often I would say it's all about getting the fish feeding. If the fish are feeding confidently in your area, you've got them feeding, moving between mouthfuls, more often than not you can drop like a simple no-knot rig down there in amongst the bait and you'll hook a fish. Now, it couldn't be simpler for this one. All you're going to need is some hook link. In this case I'm using Supernatural braid and a good sharp hook. In this case I'm using a size 8 quarter wide gape, a good sharp hook. It's got an in-turned point, an in-turned eye, and basically all you have to do is take your length of hook link and tie an overhand loop knot in it. And you don't want it to be too big. So that's just a matter of folding it over, getting a baiting needle, and the other faithful gardener baiting needle, and pulling the loop back through. Like so. And what you need to do is trim off your excess tag end, you can see there. Now, one little tip that I will give you is always keep a pair of scissors that like good and sharp. The old braid blades are like perfect. These are Gerber ones or Gerber ones or whatever you want to call them. And I don't use these for anything else but for cutting hook link material, and that way they'll always stay sharp. So you trim off the excess like so. Incidentally, I've got another pair of scissors which I use for like chopping off hair stops and chopping your mono and all that kind of thing. So what you're left with is a nice neat loop like so. Then what you need to do is chop off your required length of hook link. I mean, in this case I probably want about a 7-8 inch length of hook link. That's pretty much what I use for most of my fishing. It's a good starting point. Sometimes you go shorter. For example, over on Sandhurst I go shorter, sometimes go down to like 4 or 5 inches type thing. But 7-8 inches is a reasonable starting point. And then what you need to do is pass the end, wet the end, and pass it through the outside of the hook's eye, and you pull it up. Okay, what you've got to do now is determine how long you want your hair to be. So the way I always work it out is that you want the top of the bait, as you can see, to touch where the shank of the hook, the straight shank of the hook, starts bending. And in my experience that's probably about the best place to actually have the top of the bait sitting. It just allows a bit of movement in the carp's mouth and allows the hook to take hold. You can have it longer, you can fish it short if you want, but I found that that took me a fair few carp in the past. So you just offer your bait up. In this case it's a 16mm pineapple bait. You offer your bait up to the hook like so, situate it perfectly, and then you tie the knot. Now, it's the simplest thing ever. What you do, you just got to wrap this hook link around the hook 5 times, but do it this way. Okay, you don't want the knot starting where the eye bends round and meets the shank. You want it on the other side. So you basically wrap the hook link round 5 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do it up the shank, so you're not wrapping one part of the knot on top of the other knot. It's a nice knot. You've got to keep it tight at all times so it doesn't unravel. Bring it back round and put the tag end of your hook link back through the outside of the eye. So the hook link, as you can see, is leaving on the inside of the eye there. Perfect. And there it is. You bed it down just a little bit, pull it quite tight. So now it's just a case of tightening up the knot. With a knot tightener, pull it tight. You'll find when you pull it tight, the hair will move round just a little bit, and all you've got to do is pull it round like so, So it leaves perfectly parallel with the hook shank like that. And that's a no-knot rig. That is as simple as it gets. Now it's just a case of mounting the bait, using my trusty old Gardner baiting needle. I've had this for years. And then putting the bait onto the hair. You just basically hook it through the loop like that, put the bait on, perfect. Get yourself a boilie stop. Conveniently enough, I've snipped one off earlier. Pass it back through the loop like that, pull tight. And there we have it. That is the no-knot rig. It's a rig that's caught me a lot of carp in the past, works every time. And like I say, there is a lot of rubbish talked about rigs. People think that if they put on this rig or that rig or some new Fandango rig, it will catch them more carp, which it won't. You've always got to be thinking about getting the fish feeding confidently. Once they're down there and they're feeding confidently, you can put a rig like this out and it will catch you those carp all day long. The other good thing about it is that you can tie up lots. Not too many obviously, but you can have like 3 or 4 ready to go. So you can change them over quickly if you get a fish and the hook point's blunted or something like that. You can wang on another one. You can either tie it directly onto your swivel. Alternatively, you can have them ready to go on these little oval clips that my mates at Thinking Anglers do. They're ever so good, like quick change clips. So you tie that onto your hook link using a 4-turn grinner knot, and then if you have a fish at night, it's just a matter of like unclipping and clipping on another hook link, so it's perfect. The no-knot rig, one of my favourites.